Is Castle Keep my favorite movie of all time? No, but it is one of my all-time favorite war movies. It is not, however, an action-adventure type of war movie like Where Eagles Dare or The Dirty Dozen. No, it's something else entirely. In the early 60s, there were three big anti-nuke movies: Dr. Strangelove, Failsafe, and The Bedford Incident. I read somewhere that among studio heads, it was known as Columbia's Doomsday Trilogy. Fair enough. In the late 60s and into the very early 70s, we had three big anti-war movies: Castle Keep, MASH, and Catch-22. MASH was the big hit, of course, and was the funniest of the three. It was my generation's version of the old wartime service comedies, and although it's set in Korea, the not-so-subtle subtext is Vietnam. It was outrageously funny and hip, and people dug it. Catch-22 had the pedigree of the novel and has many amazing sequences, but it was severely criticized at the time for its $20 million budget. I know, right? Buck Henry's screenplay was also criticized for its unconventional structure, but for me it works. But Castle Keep, which opened before the other two, is less well known. I like all three movies, but Castle Keep is my favorite. Based on a novel by William Eastlake, Castle Keep is about a small group of soldiers who must barrack in a medieval castle right before the Battle of the Bulge. The castle is called Maldaret, and it is a repository of sorts of great works of art. And as it happens, the castle sits directly in the path of the German counteroffensive. For me, this is the real apocalypse now. No, it's not about Vietnam. It's about civilization and civilization's ancient enemy, war. This is played out in a battle of wills between Patrick O'Neill's Captain Beckman, who in civilian life was an art historian, and Burt Lancaster's Major Falconer, who is a professional soldier and only cares about stopping the Germans. Director Sidney Pollack once remarked that he thought he was too inexperienced to take on a project like Castle Keep. And with that cast, and in those Serbian locations, it must have been a daunting experience. But he succeeds admirably well. Despite all the action, it's the small scenes that register, like when Al Freeman tries to cheer up Patrick O'Neill after having been razzed by the other soldiers, or when Tony Bill is talking about music to a hidden German soldier who is then killed by Peter Falk because, as he says, "That's what we do for a living, Lieutenant." Or the scene where Tony Bill is playing the organ in the castle's great hall, and the painting of the beautiful woman momentarily comes to life. But many of the jokes fall flat. The "I'm in love with the Volkswagen" scene, which was funny in the book, does not work on screen, but the action sequences certainly do. The final assault on the castle is a real doozy, as Burt Lancaster shoots down not just the advancing Germans with his machine gun, but the whole world as well. It's a spectacular and surrealistic sequence. In order to defend the castle, he ensures its destruction. And it's every castle down through the ages, every castle offering protection from the Visigoths, the Huns, the Vikings, the barbarians. But in the end, the castle burns. See you around the campus.